welcome to this another episode of ECCB Connects. This week, we'll be looking at managing finances in times of crisis. Stay with us. We'll continue in a moment. Managing finances, especially in times of crisis, and we'll be focusing on households. Today we have Michel Williams, a former banker, business owner, accountant from Dominica, the Commonwealth of Dominica. We also have Agatha Aspin. She's business service manager in the Office of the Premier in Montserrat. And we have Vernessa Henry-Long. Vernessa worked at one of the duty-free jewelry stores in St. Lucia. Gentlemen, ladies, welcome to ECCB Connect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Today we'll be discussing the importance of managing finances. This is something that we encourage all households to do, and even businesses. We encourage everybody to manage their finances. But with COVID-19, we see that there's an extra push for this, managing finances in times of crisis like we're facing now. And Vernessa, we'll start with you, given that you, during at the start of the impact of COVID-19, you were working on reduced hours, but now you are pretty much out of a job. How has this situation been for you, making this transition from being employed to now unemployed?
Well, to be honest, as it stands, our employer is actually telling us to don't say that we are unemployed, but we are not active employees. And the reason for that is because once the season is open, we will be going back to our jobs. And to be honest with you, I've had to shift my way of shopping. From a consumer standpoint, it is really, I won't say it's affecting me directly in the sense where it's affecting my psyche, but I've really had to adjust in terms of shopping with a list now. Being more concise as to what exactly I'm going in and out of the supermarket for. I've had to no longer walk with my wallet, because before I would walk with my wallet, which has my debit cards, credit cards, cash. So now I would have a list, and if I have an estimate as to $150, so this is one of the major adjustments that I've had to make, and we have had to make as a family when going to shop. Be very strategic as to, prior to leaving the house, we have a list, and we know exactly what we're going to buy. Another thing too, I was one of those individuals who would shop. When I look at my pantry or my cupboard, I would shop without my cupboard having to be almost at zero. I would just replenish, like, every time I go to the supermarket, replenish on top of groceries. I've now had to, and of course it's because of the lockdown, I've had no choice, because I would not make a supermarket run as often because of the long lines. So I've had to allow the pantry to basically reach on almost E, though not E, but almost at a level where I need the necessities, and then go to do the supermarket run and replenish.
Okay. Michel and Agatha, we've heard Vernessa going to the store without a shopping list. She's one of those no-hold-barred shoppers. And of course, in times of crisis, or even preparing for difficult times, it's important to plan and to have certain measures in place. I'll start with you, Michel. For the households, what do households need to do start doing even before a crisis hits in terms of managing their finances?
Vernessa, you're definitely on the right track, because one of the critical things that are necessary is a fundamental discipline shift. Yeah. So even before you begin, or even if you are looking at a crisis down the road, you have to start with a certain financial discipline that will allow you to manage your finances moving forward. And it starts with actually your piece of paper, your pen, and your calculator. Regardless of whether you have an income at the top, you do have to, line by line, list out those monthly expenses, those that you cannot live without, like your electricity, your occupancy, like your rent, and certainly budget for food from a holistic standpoint in terms of the dollar value. And then you need to look, at your other utilities, your phone, and so on. And more importantly, this is not just sitting and applying numbers to it. You have to look deeper and see how you can reduce some of those things. Do you need to change your package with the utility company? How do you get that light bill $20 less or $30 less? And it involves a certain discipline of walking around the house at 8 o'clock in the night and switching off every light that isn't in use. And getting people in a single space. If you have a small family and everybody's in one space, your house doesn't necessarily have to be a Christmas tree. Those things add up at the end of the month in terms of consumption. And then, of course, you have to look at the basic necessities as to what it is that you need to buy to survive. And it's like the old saying that they have, you have to make every dollar stretch. And in COVID-19, and particularly the industry you're in, your dollar have to stretch like a rubber band, because this is not a 2-week or a 3-week or a 4-week process. This is going to take a little while. And normally your season starts in September, October.
Yes.
We don't know when that start is going to be and whether it is going to be at any significant level. So you have to be smart about looking at, what resources you have and how are you going to spend those resources day by day. And I like to reference the phrase from Governor Andrew Cuomo in the US. It is stone by stone over the morass, where every stone is every day. And so you have to look at every single step that you take and make sure that it is the right step for every dollar that you have.
I totally support all that you have said. And the mind shift with regards to what is happening now in the crisis should also be your benchmark to go forward, even out of the crisis, because it's apparent that what we tend to do when there is funds, we spend it unwisely. There was no budget, there was no shopping list, nothing like that. So if we're going to just do the belly tightening now, just during the crisis, with the intent that when things come around again, things start looking up, we go back to our old way of living, then we wouldn't have learned anything from this crisis, and we would not be ready should another one come up. So it is important that mind shift is not temporary, but something that we go forward with, that before we go out to do that shopping, we have our list. Before we even reach there's some sort of household budget. And with that income coming in, make sure that you are made for any uneventualities. Like now that you have that little buffer, and we don't know how long this is going to last us. So we need to make sure we always have that buffer. And I'm in total agreement that we just don't sit back and wait for the job that we had if it comes back around, but to see how we can augment whatever income, how we can generate income in the interim, if the restrictions in your country allow you to go out and work, because in some areas like us, we're still under lockdown. We really can't go out and do that, depending on the field we're in.
Michel, you and Agatha have made mention of preparing a budget. Now, a member of a household or head of household might say, budget, what is that? How do I go about preparing a budget? So in the simplest form. Take us through the steps of preparing a budget.
A budget is simply a recording of all the monies coming in and the money is going out of the house. And it should not be done just by mama and papa. It should be done and involve all members of the family, because as Michel mentioned about the utilities and so forth, it doesn't make any sense if all the money is coming in and we sit down and list monies going out and how we can control those. We can't control it just between mama and papa, because the children need to know that the lights can't stay on 24/7. You can't be using the refrigerator as an AC. When it's hot, you're going to stand up in front of it, because all of that would have implications as to how much money would be going out. And so you'll have all coming in, whether it be mommies and daddies or whoever the bread earners are, and list clearly what is going out. And one of the things which is going out must always be that bit to put in the bank for the rainy day.
Yes.
And to see how best we can control what is going out.
Michelle, so Agatha mentioned what's coming in, that's your income, what's going out, what you're spending. Those are the two key issues you have to look at when you preparing your budget. But does it end there in terms of preparing your budget, Michelle?
For a household budget, it doesn't really end with just the inflows and the outflows. Agatha made a very important point that I want to lead on, which she said, put something away for a rainy day. And unfortunately for us in the Caribbean, this COVID-19 is a drizzle, because in the next 4 weeks and for the next 4 months, we have hurricanes, which is a real rainy day that I can tell you, coming from Dominica and the effects of Hurricane Maria, where everybody lost, 40 years, what they had for the last 40 years in 5 hours. So this is a rainy day. This will be rainy days that we have above and beyond what you see on television and CNN. And so it is important that you save first and then spend later. In this particular environment, particularly in your case, Vernessa, when you don't have a specific income coming in, you're basically going down to subsistence level, where you have to make sure that you have shelter, you have to make sure you have basic utilities, and you have to make sure that you have food. And that's about it. That's
essentials.
Basically essential. Essentials have become a very important buzzword now. We have essential workers and so on. You need an essential budget, which is basically shelter, food, and basic utilities as much as you can, because you had to wait out that storm.
Yes. I was looking at the end part of the budget, an important component, because you look at what's coming in, your income, and what you're spending, and the balance has to be there. One side cannot be higher than the other. So tell us about keeping that budget in line as to what it really should be.
Well, governments are the only people that have the benefit of doing deficit funding in terms of their budgets. We simple folk, we have to zero out that budget, which means that if you have $1,000, that is all you have coming in. What's going out of that must always equal $1,000 or less. Okay. And sometimes when you do the initial thing, you find you have $1,000 coming in and you're $1,500 going out. That does not balance.
You have a problem right there.
You have a problem right there, because you don't have the funds to support the things that you would like to do. And there is where you have to make the critical decisions that you need to make to decide what you're going to sacrifice. And that has nothing really just to do with the current situation. That is what you have to do all the time. All the time. All right? And so you have to cut out certain things. You have to make behavioral changes in certain instances so that you can get that $1,000 to equal $1,000.
Vernessa, they've been talking about budgeting, income, expenditure, putting something aside. Does this sound practical for you?
It sounds very practical. Things always sound practical.
Yes.
But it's when you have to, really sit down and actually do it. This is where you have the issues, I should say. I mean, I do a budget every month, and 90% of the time I bust my budget. Again, because I was one who, and I say was because total paradigm shift.
COVID-19 has changed you?
Yes, COVID-19 has totally changed me and my family. I was one who would have that miscellaneous. You always have that little miscellaneous in your budget.
Yeah.
You don't need it, but you still put it there because you want to do some shopping online, or you want to do all of those other stuff. So, I mean, I don't have that miscellaneous. I would rather I would have the savings, but I'd rather beef up the savings instead of putting the miscellaneous, because what's the point in the miscellaneous if it's just to go and do the lavish things? The budget, it is something that we do. However, I was always busting it, like I said to you, but now is the time that some of the essentials definitely are on the top, and all of the things that are not necessary in the budget. For example, I was one who would do my hair and that's for the ladies. I know Mr. Williams, you would be like, oh, I'm keeping it real here. I'm keeping it
Yes.
real with the ladies.
Yes, I'm with you.
My nails, let me tell you, my nails would get done. My hair would be on point. My makeup, let me tell you, I'm not even going to get started with the clothing. But these are things that I've had to, and like you really see, we unscript the barrel period now. So my hair has not gotten a proper
And it
relaxer.
looks great. It's not essential. You still look great. You see?
So what we've had to do as women, and I'm speaking on behalf of most of the women, I'm pretty sure you've
Yes.
had to do a lot of things at home. So if you go to the salon to do your regular shampooing and stuff, I've had to do that at home. I've had to do my own manis and own pedis at home. So again, a lot of things in the budget that I would have had in the budget, especially the non-essential things, I would have had to remove.
So the non-essentials. So really, Michelle and Agatha spoke about preparing a budget, but it doesn't end there. You have to stick within your budget, because if you prepare the budget, and as Vernessa has said, she's always bursting her budget, it's no use. So the key thing, you prepare your budget, you make sure what you're spending is not more than what you're getting in, is not more than your income, and you stick to your budget.
Correct. I'm now sticking to the budget, but I know Agatha did state that it's not just for now. So I mean, even after COVID-19, or when we're heading into other periods, like in our Caribbean state, we have the hurricane period. These are times where we always find to tighten up our belts, and then you have like Christmas, which is coming along, and then you loosen up a little again. But I do think that COVID-19 has really impacted on the way I have done things and we have done things as a family. And to be honest with you, I don't see, I'm not sure what the future holds, but I cannot really see me going back to the way it was before.
Final words for our households, Michelle?
No, the final words for our household is, we have to start thinking out of the box. We have to make some critical decisions in terms of the income that we're getting and what we can spend it on. We have to look at new and interesting ways to earn income in a digital environment. It's time for you to dress up for a date to your kitchen. The internet is full of all sorts of things. People are interested, they're at home, they have nothing to do. And so even just from a mental health standpoint, it's important that we who have been displaced in employment are able to engage with a much wider audience, albeit in a different way. And if we can monetize that in some way, then there's an opportunity to build some income stream when the conventional income seems to have evaporated. And my last thing on this I would like to say is, generally what I hope coming out of COVID is that the islands in the Caribbean don't again get stuck to a mono-economic engine like tourism or agriculture, that it spreads so decentralized that we're not going to be susceptible to those kind of shocks, where we have to be in that. And that's at the home level, that's at the innovation level, with people that now find themselves with more time than they need. So that's my.
Thank you, Michelle. Agatha?
To say that hope whatever we shared here today, yes, Vernessa was our head of household for this particular thing, but hope that other households throughout, whoever the audience would be, who you share it to, would have learned something from what we said here, and not only to put it into practice during a crisis, but that it become a way of life here on earth.
Thank you. Vernessa?
Well, I learned quite a lot from Agatha and Mr. Williams, and I'm so thankful to have accepted the opportunity to be from a household, just explaining my experiences and how COVID-19 have actually changed everything around me, not just what I do on a general basis, but my trend of thought as well. So I am very thankful to have been sitting on this platform here today.
Okay. What would you say to your fellow heads of household who would prepare their budget but just ignore it? Now that you've been part of this panel, what word do you have for them?
Well, I would say to you, be frugal with the spending plan. Prepare to plan, because if you don't plan, you will prepare to fail, like we always say to the kids when they do exams. So we really need to plan before we do anything. Our budget definitely budget as a family. Like I think Agatha said, let the kids, even as young as my 7-year-old, now that, and this is something that I've now learned, because it was just my husband and myself who was doing the budget. So now I guess we'd have to bring him in to budget with him so that he can understand you can no longer have 20 snacks, but now you can maybe have 2, and we will make a snack from the orange tree. So it is definitely something that I would like to recommend to all families out there. If you were not budgeting and you were once like me, who would go into the supermarket and go aisle by aisle without a shopping list, without a budget, and stick to that budget, like Mr. Williams says, or allow that budget to have that excess for you that you can use towards something essential, whether it be a medical bill or a bill that you would definitely need monies you definitely need in the long run.
To view any episode of ECCB Connects anytime, any place at your convenience, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn at ECCB Connects.
We've come to the end of this week's episode of ECCB Connects. Thank you for watching and invite you to join us again next week for another program.